G'day everybody, I'm Jackson Jones from TheBiker.Bar, and with me today is Joe Ross from Moto Direct. And today we're going to be talking about helmet types and what to look for when you go into a store. Thanks for joining us, Joe.
Yeah, thanks very much for having me on. It's good to be back.
So what I'd like to do is sort of run through the different kinds of helmets that you might see in a store. Typically, well, let's start with the full face helmet, because typically that's the kind that you're going to see first and foremost when you walk into a store. Can you tell us a little bit about those and what features and those kinds of things that we might see?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if we're talking about full face helmets as a whole, there is really quite a broad spectrum within that of actual different types of helmets that you can get. From like race helmets, touring helmets, helmets that are a little bit easier to fit. Maybe they've got some visors, maybe they haven't, and different mechanisms like micrometric buckles or double D-ring systems. So within full face helmets, there's a lot of different choice that a customer could have. And what a manufacturer tends to do is they give you a set of features for your riding style, right, or for your riding needs. So there's a huge amount kind of within that scope. So probably the first helmet that I should probably talk about is a race helmet, and there's a reason for that, if I'm honest with you. So this is a helmet called the AGV Pista. This is a no holds barred race helmet. Now, the reason that I start with race helmets particularly is quite a lot of manufacturers will put into their race helmets the top level of technology that they possibly can. They trial a lot of features. Race helmets have to perform a certain way. But certainly what we tend to find working with manufacturers is this is where the tech is. Then as it becomes applicable to the road and cheaper to manufacture, maybe through tooling costs or through, economies of scale of shapes and things like that, we then see a lot of the technology that goes into these top helmets trickle down into the helmets that are probably more appropriate for the road. One thing when we look at a full face helmet, just to note as a bit of a general thing, and the reason we get open face helmets is that a helmet is there to protect our brain from injury, and that's done through this top part of the shell here. This part, which we call the chin bar, offers you no protection from absorption of energy towards your brain. But what it does do, obviously, it stops your face from hitting the floor. You can obviously, have an open face helmet that still protects your brain, but you will have less protection for your face. And that's an important thing to know as a user. In the UK particularly, most people take a full-faced or modular style of helmet because they want that chin bar protection, sure, which is great. Generally, and particularly now because of things like FIM testing, generally with your race helmet, you tend to get the strongest shell. So previously, something like the Pista would have been really, really light, but to improve on the safety, although it is a single piece of carbon fiber, for example, it will be very, very strong. They've made the shell thicker, slightly different grade of carbon fiber from the previous version. That's made, it has increased the weight a little bit versus the previous, but certainly because it's carbon fiber, it's very light. On this helmet, for an example, can you see that the vents are open? So there's literally nothing in here. Now for a road user, obviously it starts to rain. This is not ideal, but a racer is only ever traveling for 20 minutes to an hour if he's doing endurance, perhaps, let's say. Within that time, the weather's probably not going to change significantly. Yeah. So what we see on a race helmet, and we sell lots of race helmets to people who aren't necessarily racing, we see very race-specific technology, and then anything applicable, we move down through the range. So this is a really good example. You can see how pointy it is, how aerodynamic it is. You can see they've got that really big screen on there, and there's lots and lots of ventilation. And you can see there's lots of aero for the back of the helmet as well. This is a great example of a no holds barred race helmet. It's even fitted with a drinks tube as well. And that's because a race rider is working very physically hard. And often what you can get in a good, a made to measure set of leathers, the space of the hump can have a hydro pack in. So if you're riding Suzuka 8 Hour, which is notorious for being incredibly hot, you can have a drink and concentrate on what you're doing. Nice. and they set that they tend to sit right at the top of the tree in terms of cost.
Right.
You're paying for all of that technology. So, you know, a race helmet is probably going to be very expensive. They might have features like the venting, you know, that you don't want on the road necessarily. Also, they might be maybe, let's say, a bit noisy, for example. But things like the big screen, they're applicable to the road. Because obviously, if you're checking your shoulder, as you're looking around, you need to see the different road users. And certainly you want that level of safety within a helmet as well. You know, you don't want to have a subpar helmet if you're out on the road as well. So then what a manufacturer would tend to do is move the technology that's built into that helmet that's usable for the road and build it into something that we find is more usable for the road. So again, for an example, if I just show you this, the next helmet down within AGV's full face range is the K6 here. And you can see very similar screen, very similar vents, but switchable.
Right.
The interiors are slightly different, so it's a little bit more comfortable because you're probably not riding it for 20 minutes, for example.
Yep.
You know, and you've got less of the aero, but it's still quite an aero shape.
Yeah.
So that's an example of the different kind of styles of full-faced helmet that you can get very simply just from a track-orientated helmet through to a road-orientated helmet.
So is a race helmet suitable for people that, like, for anyone who's on the road? If you're into, you know, if you just like the look of that first helmet, it looks like a beauty, you know, but I ride a cruiser, is that going to be suitable for me?
I mean, if you ride a cruiser, probably not. You're going to look a bit silly. But the important thing is, right, if you wanted to wear that helmet because you thought it looked cool, absolutely you could.
Right.
Okay. As long as it, you know, they're all going to be approved for the road, no problems at all. And to be fair, if you've got a super sport bike or a sport bike or a super naked, you're probably going to buy that helmet because it looks the part, you know. And you're probably going to put up with maybe the not so road friendly features because you look awesome on your really cool bike. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about.
So one thing I've heard about race helmets, and I don't know if this is a myth or not, because I am a cruiser rider, you know, that your opening is in a slightly different spot because on a sports bike you're sort of more leaned over. Is that a myth or is that a fact?
It would depend on the model. So I know helmets that have a specific pitch where you can change the pitch of the helmet based on the internals. The Pista is a great example of that. So if I mean, obviously he's not riding anymore, but if you see pictures of Valentino, you know, riding in that helmet, you can see that it's very, very kind of, the aperture sits here. So that all of the aperture is above here, so that when he's tucked down, you can see everything he needs to. So sometimes, yes, you do get that.
Okay.
Arai, for example, on their RX-7, which you see behind me, they reinforce the shell around the brow area so that you have a thinner EPS liner so it doesn't encroach on your vision. So actually, manufacturers are considering that type of thing, absolutely.
Right.
And for somebody on a cruiser potentially as well, there's also the idea that maybe a helmet has been designed to be going straight into the wind a little bit more or less, depending on what screen you use. So you might get more or less aerodynamics depending on what type of helmet that you choose. So that's something to always to consider as well.
Yeah. Okay. And so then something that looks very similar to a full face helmet, we've got the modular helmets. What's the difference between the two?
Yeah, so modular helmets, we're seeing a real kind of uptick in people buying modular helmets. And again, I've got an example from AGV here. So just so everybody can see, a modular helmet is more commonly known as a flip-fronted helmet, or it can be called a system helmet. Effectively, it still has the chin bar to protect your face. However, the chin bar, can also be locked down and it can be ridden as a full face helmet as well. Now these are really nice for people who are doing lots of touring, particularly, you know, in the UK, when I'm talking to customers, if you're doing big European tours and you go in multi countries, you're fueling your bike all the time, you're getting off at péage tolls or whatever else, these are great because, you know, they give you all the convenience of, right, filling up a bike, there we go.
Yep.
I'm bobbing through the town. and I'm doing below 30 miles an hour because of the traffic, I can sit comfortably like this. But look, we're at motorway speeds. Okay, perfect. And it gives you that additional protection, that wind protection as well. You've got your eyes to consider. You're not going to get anything in them. So these are really, really popular at the minute, particularly with those guys that want convenience. Importantly, as well, under the new 2206 regulation, a lot of these modular helmets are what we call P and J rated. So that means P, it is a full face helmet. J, it's also a protective helmet when it's in upright position.
Right.
So if you're going to ride a modular helmet in the upright position, it's really important that you get a P and J rated helmet. And they have a locking mechanism, which you can see just here. And that locks this up. And that makes sure that when you're in an accident, it's not going to come down and cause any secondary injury. And that's required by 2206.
Right.
Because of the nature of the customer that's buying a modular helmet as well, we're seeing more and more modular helmets built with proprietary comm systems. So I don't know if you can see this on the camera, but on the side of the helmet, sorry, it's this side, on the side of the helmet here, there's a controller for a comm system, and it's hidden away. The actual sender receiver and the battery pack is built into the inside of the shell here. Now, generally, the demand from the customer who's using this type of helmet, doing those really nice big tours and enjoying riding, they're probably going out with either a pillion or a group of people. Yeah. And the demand has been to get these comm systems. Previously, they would be built onto the side of the helmet, and there's no problem with that. Yeah. But now we're seeing a trend of them being built into the helmet. This obviously helps you with aerodynamics and noise. It means that everything's designed to go on the inside of the helmet, which makes it very comfortable to wear. Because when a manufacturer's building the helmet, they can obviously build that space in, make it really nice and easy to use. And it also helps with a safety level as well. I mean, obviously, there's less impacts at the base of the helmet here, but certainly potentially from any rotational forces or for any dragging on the floor, so coefficient of friction forces, it definitely helps with that, which is really, really nice. So we're seeing more and more modular helmets. These are really popular with people like Deliveroo riders, people, riding a bike, maybe delivering takeaway, stuff like that. Because again, they're off the bike, on the bike, off the bike. They don't be having to take their helmet all the time. It's a bit of a pain in the bum. So this gives them that convenience, which is really, really great. And we're seeing a lot of people buy this style of helmet now as well, moving to this style of helmet. Really, really cool.
Yeah, and I guess your full face helmets do come with those features or the capability of adding those comms features and the like.
Yeah, absolutely. I can think of some examples of full face helmets that have been built with proprietary systems again, so you get very much that additional. But a lot of manufacturers, I'm thinking about Arai, every single one of their helmets has been built to take a comm system with space around your ears for your speakers. So although there's no specific proprietary built and tested with, there's a center system that goes with the Arais, but you can also put a universal one, no problems at all. And that I yet to find a good quality full face helmet that can't have a comm system in, which is great. So you definitely have that option, certainly. Sure. Modular helmets as well, they tend to have a sun visor within, because again, that's the demand for the customer. If they've got the helmet flipped up, they can just drop that sun visor down, or even if they've got it in the downward position and there's a little bit of low light, they can drop that sun visor down. And that's a really nice feature. You can get sun visors in full-faced helmets as well. And sun visors are certainly a feature which a lot of customers are demanding. If you go over the top of a hill and suddenly there's sun in your eyes, and it's a really convenient thing, just boom, and the sun visor comes down and you can see where you're going. We can all understand the importance of that, certainly. Yeah.
Okay. And I guess another kind of full face helmet would be your motocross style helmet. Yep. How does that differ from a road helmet?
So motocross helmets are in general designed just to take goggles, because a motocross racer, an enduro racer, somebody going practicing, they wear goggles. They're happy with that. No problems at all. I mean, certainly I can think of an example of an off-road school here in the UK, because they take a lot of road users or people that are new to off-road. They actually prefer to use an adventure style helmet, because sometimes goggles can be a little bit of a weird thing if you're not used to using them. Yeah. But a motocross racer will have a full face helmet with an elongated chin bar and a peak on.
Yep.
and there's a big space for a set of goggles. Now on the road side of things, I haven't got an example of a motocross helmet, I'm ever so sorry, but I have got an example of what we call a dual sport helmet. So, or an adventure helmet. So this effectively is motocross style. You've got your peak for your roost protection. Obviously the guys on the road tend to use it for sun. You've got your elongated chin bar for that really nice look and that long piece. You get lots of ventilation, lots of air through the helmet when you're working physically hard, but with the addition of the screen on the front, so that you can have all the benefits of that, you know, locked off piece, no wind coming in. You've got that great view as well. So what we're seeing out on the road side of things is these adventure helmets. You know, if you're riding, you know, any type of adventure bike, you're probably going to use a peaked helmet like this in some kind of way. You know, the Arai that I've got here is an incredibly popular one. You know, people like Charlie Borman, Ewan McGregor, using them. You know, I think that certainly helped. But the Arai Torex that we have here is a really popular dual sport helmet within the UK, and it can be also ridden without a peak. And this is really useful because it almost gives you two helmets in one package. So that's what the Torex looks like without a peak on. And I think that's really, really cool.
Yeah.
So you can get all those different uses from a dual sport helmet, as well as, of course, looking the part. Here's another example of an adventure helmet. So this is from Bell. This is called the MX-9 Adventure. This also has the MIPS system in, which is a protective slip plate, which protects you from rotational forces. So again, lots and lots of choice in this dual sport market. They're really, really aesthetically pleasing. You know, they go with those type of bikes, and they have the advantage of being able to take goggles if you want to. You can pop that screen off, or you can pop the peak off and use it as a full face helmet. So they're quite adaptable in that way, which is really, really nice.
And how does it fare against a traditional full face helmet when it allows that wind in it, or is it a noisier helmet, or is it a?
It's difficult to say. We tend to not want to talk about noise too much because it's incredibly subjective. Right. Depending on how tall you are and what bike you're on, and your road position, depending on what screen you've got on, you know, there are so many factors involved with noise specifically that we tend not to worry about it too much. It's more about kind of using the helmet, getting one that fits nicely. What you will get, obviously, with an adventure style helmet is the peak is in some way going to potentially drag the helmet back and create a force at, you know, high speeds. So it's really important you get one that works really well. And I think this is another reason why this Torex helmet here is very popular. This peak is very bendy, as well as having a shape. I think you can see it just here. Shape, which is an aerofoil. So it tries to counteract that drag that you get with downforce and balances those out. If you're going to ride with a peak on, these are the kind of things that you need to consider. It can potentially become uncomfortable. You know, also it might be worth noting that some manufacturers also put in their instruction manual that the peak is not to be worn at, you know, motorway speeds, and that you're meant to pop it off. You know, again, they can come off really easy, so it's not a problem, but it's definitely worth noting. And I think that's probably more going to affect the comfort than anything else. So yeah, just if you're going to have a peaked helmet, just have a look around, see what your mates are using. Yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting to know. That then, do they come with a comm system? You can get all the same kind of features in a dual sport?
Absolutely. And comm systems in dual sport helmets, again, really popular because those guys on those big sit up and beg bikes, they're definitely doing a lot of miles, and very, very popular feature. The helmets that I have don't have proprietary systems in, so they're not tested like that. But again, you can fit universal ones, no problems at all. You can also, I have seen in the market, dual sport helmets with sun visors. That Bell that I've just shown, for example, actually comes with a black visor in the box. Sometimes in the UK, we have that offer, so you don't need it. And the Arai no Arais come with sun visors, but you can get them. So there are also within that, there is even more scope to kind of get those features if you want them. Again, we can all appreciate what a sun visor can do, but the great thing about the peak is what a lot of guys on the road do, they just tip their head down and you get that little bit of shade if you do get a bit of low light as well. So we feel that it's not necessarily, it's a less important feature within a dual sport helmet.
Yeah.
But you can get them. So again, plenty of shopping to be done, you know.
All right. And then moving away from the full face, we've then got a 3/4 helmet.
So we would call it an open face helmet like this, basically.
Right. Yeah.
So, and then we also have, or we've just this year into 2023, because of 2206, we actually stopped getting it. But there's a helmet from Bell which basically only went here, and now in the UK you can't get it.
Right.
And so it's all about the look. It's all about looking exactly how you need to when you're riding that style of motorcycle. And I get it, right? You know, I think that people on bikes tend to forget that it's a fashion thing. It's a leisure thing. We do it because it's cool, right? So looking the part on the bike is, I think, just as important as everything else that I spoke about, you know. And the half helm is a very traditional kind of like cruiser style, Harley guy style thing.
Yeah.
That is to do with, you know, biker gangs from back in the day, and bike clubs. It's a really, really cool thing. I've not got an example to show you, unfortunately, because again, we've just stopped doing that helmet within the UK, and it was to do with the testing requirements. So the testing requirements, there was an impact that would just happen below the usual half helmet area that we see. So what Bell did is they extended just beyond the test parameters so that they could legally sell a helmet, and more importantly, end users were not buying unsafe helmets, which up until that point, before there was that half helmet, users were doing that. They were buying, you know, maybe ex-military or something like that style. And those helmets were not designed and tested for motorcycles, so they were potentially unsafe. Right. So it was to fulfill a need to make sure that motorcyclists were buying a safe product, basically.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Brilliant. Well, I think you've run through the range.
Yeah, I mean, there's another helmet with the removable chin bar that we can talk about. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
So let me just do some rearranging. Excuse me. So again, this is it sits in a very similar category to those people that are buying those half helmets. So not everybody wants to buy that half helmet, but they want this really cool, aggressive,
very cool
street.
I can wear that on the cruiser.
Yeah, absolutely. and this, it's really nice. You've got that flip up visor, which in the UK we get with the black tint that you can see here, and a clear tint, which is really nice. But really cool is, and this is really hard to do while I also try and display the helmet, so please excuse me, but we have a removable chin bar as well. So there you can see you have effectively an open faced helmet now. You've still got that sun visor within there, so that's still there. We can drop that down, no problems. And that has been removed. Now, uniquely, that is a protective chin bar. So although it does have an open face look, when the chin bar is in place, we still do get the protection from the road. That's really, really important. But it gives the user kind of a bit of a change. You know, one day they might want to ride open face. Maybe you don't want, you know, two helmets. I get it. You know, it's an expensive kind of investment. So now you've got that option to have both, which is really, really cool. Within Bell, these fit a category which we call culture. So they're culture helmets. You know, they have a specific look that's meant to, you know, give you that cool aesthetic which you're looking for. And one of the helmets I do just want to very quickly talk about, which we've seen a huge expanse of over the past kind of 5-6 years, and still is doing really, really well, is a really important helmet within the culture range, which is the Bullet. So this is the Bell Bullet. You might recognize it.
Yeah.
It's a synonymous helmet. Bell were very clever in bringing this helmet to the market when custom, you know, bikes and, you know, barn builds and street fighter style helmets and retro style bikes were just coming to the fore. And there was no helmet that was, you know, modern, safe, but had this look. You know, this is built on the original Bell Star from back in the 60s, which was the first full-faced helmet. Yeah. But of course, brought up to speed with all your kind of modern safety elements. But again, it's that culture thing. It's that aesthetic. It's that it gives you that look that's really, really nice. We also, believe it or not, we sell a lot of these to female riders who are new to motorcycling, who they're like the look. That's, you know, that's what it's all about. But also they really like that it has a very thin chin bar. So although it's got a screen and gives you that protection, you get a really large aperture and it's not too claustrophobic on your face.
Right.
But again, fitting into the culture end, you've got the Bell Bullet for another choice as well within that full face range. There's absolutely loads to be going at depending on what type of riding you're doing. You know, I think most people, they could quite happily simply go into a shop and buy, you know, sport touring or a street helmet, full face, no problems at all.
Yep.
Happy days. But actually, when you get into the weeds with it, when you really get into the thick of it, there's so much more. What do you want? Do you want that sun visor? Do you want a race style helmet? Do you want something that's toned down? Do you want something that's bright so people can see you? Do you want a peak? Do you want modular? There's so many different choices. And that's confusing potentially for a new rider, but as somebody who develops a taste and has more experience on a motorcycle, it's great. There's so much to choose from now, you know?
And I guess as long as you've got an approved helmet, you could take your pick.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, you know, this is something that I've said to you before, Jackson, and you know, without wanting to sound like a broken record, but this is a great reason to go into a really good retailer, because you know that everything that you have there is going to be approved.
Yeah,
it's going to be safe, because that business doesn't want, you know, any kickback from you at all. They only want to sell you good quality gear. You know, I spend a lot of my time talking to people in shops as well and imparting my knowledge to them as much as possible, so that they are armed with all the knowledge they need. So going into a good quality shop as well, you get a lot of this talk, you know, to you and to help you make that decision. At the end of the day, if you're happy with your product as an end user, you're more likely to come back to that shop. And shops nowadays, they completely understand that. They want your repeat business. They want you as a customer again and again and again. So it's definitely worth going into a retailer for me.
All right, brilliant. All right, well, thanks for running us through all the styles of helmets and giving us some food for thought next time we go into the store.
You're more than welcome.
No worries. All right. Well, thanks for watching today. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and do all those kinds of fun things. And we'll see you again in our next video.
Cheers. Bye-bye.